Everyone, I'm Clarissa Garvey. I'm a computer science PhD student at Emory University, and there's two things that I get really excited about when it comes to programming. And this talk is going to be about the first one, which is I like writing programs that do cool things. I like to have a problem that I find interesting and then tackle it with computers. And I got to do that this spring in conjunction with one of my courses. I did a project about predicting votes on an online radio website, which is called Rainwave. And in order for you to sort of understand what I did, I want to show you sort of how Rainwave works. And so this is what a screenshot of Rainwave looks like. I have the URL to Rainwave on all of the rest of my slides, so if you happen to have internet connection right now, you're totally welcome to check it out on your phone or tablets or anything during my talk, as long as you don't hit this tuning button up in the, there we go, okay. As long as you don't hit this tuning button up in the top, then you should be fine. It won't actually go ahead and play music. So this is what Rainwave looks like. And you can sort of see in the upper left, this is the all channel. There's 5 different channels, also called stations on Rainwave. And the sort of landing page, the main one, is the all channel. It's the most popular channel on Rainwave. And Rainwave is focused on video game music, and it particularly likes to let users pick what music actually plays. So you can see that the now playing song right here, this was now playing when I took the screenshot. It's Night of the Something. And it was voted to play by users. So down below you can see that there's some songs in an election. And typically there's 3 songs per election. And users get to vote on what song they want to listen to. So you can actually choose what you hear. It's kind of a cool concept. And so whichever song gets the most votes is the song that actually plays. There's a few exceptions. For example, the second song here, this song is a request. Some user went ahead and said, I really like this song. I want to hear it play on the radio, so I'm going to request it. And then the system will put that in with other songs that are randomly selected and put it up for vote. And if it gets the most votes, then it goes and it actually plays. And in general, if there's a tie, ties are broken randomly, but if there's a request, then the request is favored. So requests are slightly more likely to play than normal. And it's considered good etiquette on the site to actually vote for people's requests rather than voting against them, because someone went out of their way and said, I really want to listen to this, please let me listen to it. So if you shoot them down, it's kind of rude. Well, I listen to a station called OC Remix. It's another type of video game music that's hosted on this website. And I noticed that people were shooting down requests a lot. And this was kind of weird. It breaks site etiquette. You're not supposed to do that. And so I was like, that's sort of an unpredictable behavior. But at the same time, people were voting in other ways that were pretty predictable. Songs that have the highest average rating tended to be voted to win more frequently. Songs from popular video games like Final Fantasy tended to win over less popular games like Machinarium. And so I was wondering, well, sometimes it seems like this behavior is really predictable. Is there any way that we could gather some data about what users' preferences are and just see what they're doing and then use that to predict what they're going to vote for next? And so that's what I actually did. And so I went into this project trying to answer 3 main questions. The first one is that sort of basic question of, can we actually predict what users are going to vote for to play on this website based on what they've done in the past? This is sort of a basic machine learning problem. Can we use the past to predict what's going to happen in the future? And secondarily, I wanted to know if I was actually right about what influences people's voting. It's not necessarily true that your intuitions are always correct about what the most important factors in decisions are. And so I wanted to see, do requests really matter? Does it really matter if it's a Final Fantasy song versus a Machinarium song? What is the most important determining factor? And third, I also wanted to figure out, was my intuition about the voting being a little bit different on the station that I liked to listen to actually correct? Are people actually kind of mean on that station, and do they tend to shoot down people's requests more often? Is there really a difference between the stations? I also have linked in the bottom right here the page where you can get all of the project that I did. It's completely open source. And if you're interested in a little bit more about how voting works and sort of how things work on Rainwave, the README sort of details that a little more. So you're welcome to check it out. And so I tried to tackle this problem, and the first thing I had to do was I had to collect data. because in order for statistical prediction methods, which is what machine learning is, it's just taking data and doing statistics on it to predict what will happen with new input data. In order to do that, you have to have data. And fortunately, Rainwave has an API that lets me do this. So I went and I wrote a Python script that just grabs every single piece of data from every election that happens on Rainwave. And I did this particularly for the All channel, which is the most popular one, and the OC Remix channel, which was the one that I tended to listen to. And I split the data into two sets. I split it into one set which had everything I could possibly think that I'd ever need. I had all of the information about how long the song was, what the album was, what the rating was, the album rating, all of the information that I could possibly have. And then I had a more restricted data set, which just had the song's average rating and was it a request or not. And the reason I did that is some of the methods that I use benefit from having less data, some of them benefit from having more data. And you'll see that in my results in just a second. And I tried various approaches. If you don't understand what these different machine learning methods are, that's okay. You don't actually need to, but for people who are interested, I used k-nearest neighbors, both the sort of regular version of it, but also a regression-based method. I used linear regression and binary decision trees, and then I also did guessing as a baseline. Normally there's 3 songs in an election, but sometimes there's 2, and sometimes there's 1. So I had to check and see, okay, is my baseline 33%? Is it 50%? How often do these happen? So I use that just to give me if you do this bad, then you're no better than guessing. And in order to deal with the feature analysis, I did principal component analysis, backwards subset feature analysis, and decision tree analysis. I'm not going to talk too much about those, just what their outputs were. And so I did all of this, and I got some results. And these were my results. You can sort of see the stuff on the left is for the All station, the 2 left ones are for the All station, the stuff on the right is for the OC Remix station. The All station had sort of better, best performance. It had at most 70 to 80% performance, whereas the best predictions on the OC Remix channel only got like 60 to 70% accuracy in terms of predicting the correct winner of an election. And notably, I was not dealing with randomly decided elections. These were only ones where there was a clear-cut winner. K-nearest neighbors and k-nearest neighbors regression, as I expected, did better on a smaller data set. Those are methods that deal better with smaller data. And so the restricted set of data, they performed better. But in general, the linear regression was sort of the best method. And so this answered my first question. With these methods, I didn't feel like this was very good accuracy. I wasn't too excited about the 70 to 80% at best. I thought that maybe I could do a little bit better. But there was sort of a difference between All and OC Remix. And so I was like, that's interesting. But then when I looked at the features, I sort of got an explanation for why that is. It turns out that, in fact, whether the song was requested by a user or not is the most important determining factor. People tend not to be mean on this site. And this was for both the All station and the OC Remix station. But this can actually explain some of the differences in accuracy between the OC Remix and the All station, because the All station is more popular, it gets more requests. So as a result, it wasn't really clear to me that there was better predictions happening on the OC Remix versus the All station. It could easily be explained by, well, if the most influential factor is whether a song's requested or not, and the All station gets more requests, then people aren't necessarily behaving differently except to request things more. So I didn't feel like there was a clear difference between the 2 stations. So that answers my third question. And to finish answering which features were the most important, the second most important thing was album and song rating. And that sort of makes sense. Songs that people like on average better are going to be voted to win more. But it turns out the album rating and the song rating are closely tied because some albums only have 1 song. And so the album rating is exactly the same as the song rating. So these are sort of not quite the same thing, but pretty close. And so there's some more work that I'm doing on this and will continue to do. First off, if you check out my code, you can see some of it looks like it was thrown together last minute for a deadline. That's because some of it was. I was doing this in conjunction with a course, and so I had some kind of tight deadlines. So I'm sure I'm going to be fixing some bugs. As I've been using it this semester again, I've been fixing bugs up. I would love to see more powerful learners used on this data. something like a neural net would be awesome to try. I think that you could get a lot better accuracy on this. Since this is open source, I would love if anyone who's interested would grab my code. I have data, I have months of data for all 5 stations. I have even more data for all in OC Remix. So if anyone is interested in that data, I'd love to give it to you. I'd love to let you play around with it. In this semester, I'm working with some students at Emory to make this into a website where we actually showcase our predictions. So it's real-time grabbing data from Rainwave. We've trained some learners on the data that we have, and it shows the prediction as to what we'll play next. This was sort of my end goal when I first started this project. I'm really excited about it. It should be all set by the end of the semester. So I want to throw out my resources here at the end so that if you're interested in any of these things, you can absolutely check this out. And say that, again, if you're interested in working on any of this, it's all open source. I have plenty of data. I'd love to talk with you. I'm going to be around all day. So if you're interested in getting this data from me, we can swap emails and I'd be happy to give it to you. So thank you very much. Any questions? Go ahead.
Was the album rating the mean rating of all the songs on the album?
You'd think. So there was actually a several-page discussion on the forums recently in which I discovered that's not the case.
Okay.
They didn't do that because it turns out that if you do the mean average rating, you get a really, really tight bell curve and it doesn't tell you that much. So they actually did some sort of playing around with statistical methods to flatten it a little bit. Typically, it's within 0.1. And the ratings that you can do are on a 0.5 scale, so that's pretty good. Usually if there's one song and it has a certain rating, you're going to be within 0.1 of that. It's a scale 1 to 5 in 0.5 increments. So that's a really good question. It turns out not exactly, but it's really close. Any other questions? Go ahead.
What do you think is giving the difference in your accuracy between all stationing and OCR? Is it just that how much request matters, or is it something about like, do you have more samples for your OCR?
So there is a somewhat sample difference. In some stations, the songs are a lot shorter than others. For example, there's a chiptune station, and the songs tend to be a minute, whereas on OC Remix, the songs tend to be like 3 to 4 minutes. And so there is a slight difference in amount of data. I think that the all station has a little bit more because there's more users, and so there's less completely randomly selected because nobody is voting. There's also more requests on it. There's a bunch of different factors. So I didn't feel like I really got to the core of why these are different. I feel like there's lots of factors that could explain it, but I wasn't particularly confident that I'd nailed it down.
Is there a way, sorry if you didn't already say it, I just missed it. Can you tag like which songs are randomly selected and just take
Absolutely. I actually do that in my code. So when I did the machine learning methods, I made sure to do the predictions only on the ones that weren't randomly selected to try to sort of make it so that I wasn't going to get horrible accuracy on all of the things and just not get any sort of meaningful results.
Okay.
Do you think that you could turn the data around to try to, what am I saying, to try to predict a song request that would be almost guaranteed to be played?
That's a really interesting question. I think that you could do a little bit with that, but it's kind of hard because there's something like 10,000 songs on this website, and in order to make sure that it's not just completely Final Fantasy songs that are played all the time, it's actually really an issue. They put them on cooldown. So once a song plays, depending on which station it's on, it can't play for at least 12 hours, but sometimes up to a week. And so because there's such huge selection, and because of the sort of interesting cooldown mechanics, it would be at least a lot harder of a problem. But it would still be something that you could at least start to approach. You just need more sophisticated methods, I think, to do that. Good question. Any other? I think I have time for one more question. All right, thank you very much.